Hi, welcome to the Lockdown blog. Today we are going to be speaking to a friend and a colleague of mine called Louise Purden. She has a long experience in ministry, but she's only just recently become a Church of Scotland minister and almost immediately went into lockdown because of COVID, and so it'll be an interesting story to tell, I'm sure. We're going to hear a little bit from her, so let's go and talk to Louise. So, welcome Louise Purden, thank you for doing this.
No problem.
So far I've only spoken to retired men, so I thought I'd go to the completely other end of the spectrum.
The newbies in town!
How long have you been in post now?
So I finished my probation at St John's in Kings Park in Dalkeith. I finished there on the 31st of December 2019.
Wow.
Finishing the year with a bang, and then I started in Bonyrigg Parish Church on the 26th of January.
Wow. So almost straight into COVID.
Almost. Yeah, exactly. I had a couple of weeks to kind of, and when I first started, I was very anxious to not try and do everything, all at once. So I would remind myself, Louise, this is a marathon. It's not a race. Don't try and speed ahead. Take yourself slowly. Had I known that we would be in lockdown very quickly, I might have sped up a little bit in those early weeks. However, I am actually very grateful because I was able to get my ordination, which was a brilliant celebration. Whereas for lots of my peers, they've been having their ordinations done, with just a handful of people at a very safe distance. So while it's been challenging, I was really pleased to have had a couple of weeks to get in and get settled.
How many actual weeks in your own church with a congregation did you get before this?
Let's think. So I think I had maybe about, 6,
Wow.
Maybe more. I'm not sure. It's hard to remember life when we got to be with people. And I remember it all changed so quickly because I remember, during our notices saying, oh, well done everybody, you've braved it, you've come out. And then by the next week, we weren't allowed to. So yeah, things changed very quickly.
Absolutely. I think it took us all by surprise how serious it was.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because there was an awareness that, okay, we're closing our buildings, but we can still keep them open for prayer. And we were really keen to do that. Where we are in the high street is bang in the heart of it all. Everyone's passing for shops. And we thought, gosh, what a brilliant opportunity. We can fling our doors open. However, very quickly we realised actually we can't fling our doors open because people need to stay safe. So again, everything was changing all the time. But it's you are looking for the possibilities and for the opportunities. And so I've been grateful for people who have emailed. We are able to get our services out online. So we're reaching people who have left Bonyrigg and moved to Europe or moved other places, who are reconnecting and saying, when this all dies away, please still put on your services online. So there is a sense of community that has been built in the midst of our isolation.
Yeah, I wonder, it feels like there's no going back. I've only ever done audio recordings ever for church, and reluctantly.
Yeah. I know. It's very, very difficult. And because it's a congregation that we're just in the beginnings of getting to know each other. So I feel like it's hard because it's so one directional. So I feel they're getting to know me quite well. But it's very difficult to be missing that two-way connection because we're constantly saying church is about everybody being involved, it's about, everybody taking part. But that's proving challenging. When you're isolated. But we're getting there. We're getting some of the congregation to lead prayers and to do readings, and we're doing a children's talk where kids from their homes are doing different clues, and so you're trying to just somehow make those connections, which it has its challenges.
You've hardly had time to preach a bad sermon yet with the time you've been there. It's good.
I don't know. Don't ask my congregation that.
What have you learned, if you've had time to reflect on this, what have you learned then from maybe the expectations you had and then where you've been thrown into? Has it said anything to you?
Yeah, oh goodness. So before we even moved into the manse, we had a card put through the door, and it said, welcome to Bonyrigg. Whatever you do, be yourself. And I think that's a real constant reminder. I think especially for newbies who are seeing, these very able established ministers doing various sermons, and the pressure to think of something really profound for Holy Week, and it's really hard. So you feel quite vulnerable, I think. I'm not huge into social media in a strong way. I'm always quite kind of private and protective around that. So it's felt very exposing, kind of out there. However, I think that memory of the card has really kept me going, of just be yourself. That's all. If anybody else wants you to be, it's all that you're called to be. So having to kind of keep that at the forefront of my mind, I think, has been a really important thing to remember, and that's kept me going, I think.
I'm glad you went there, because one of the things I wondered we could explore a little bit is it's well known to lots of people that you come from a manse family, and so
yes.
There's a heritage here. It was publicised. So I'm guessing you don't mind going there for a little bit.
No secrets.
I want to ask you a difficult question, because I know your dad and I know there's a lot to learn from him. But is there anything that you're doing differently, do you think, from what he would have done, or consciously differently?
Yeah, I think my dad has always been a huge influence in my life, and he's really been an important figure in my kind of faith development. Mainly because we disagreed quite a lot. He was the person that I'd have those arguments with because it was safe enough to do. And I'm like, oh, Dad, I don't think that at all. So we'd have those kind of conversations. I think that I don't think I've been consciously different. But I think we're different people, so we are going to do things differently. But I think our style is probably quite similar. I think we're both passionate about the kind of people side of ministry, and I think my dad's got such a heart for people, and I think for me that was the appeal of ministry. But I will never forget when my dad became minister at Liberton Northfield. And we were driving up Gilmerton Road, and I said, gosh, Dad, how does it feel? You're spiritually responsible for all these people. And at the time, I thought, gosh, that must be such a horrendous weight. Oh, my goodness, what a pressure. And he turned and he looked at me, and his face was on fire with just love. And he said, oh, it's brilliant, isn't it? And I was like, yeah, well, I suppose so. And I think I've been reflecting on that as I've started in post and thinking, I really very quickly, very deeply care for Bonyrigg and very deeply care for the community and take that sense of responsibility, which, when I was with my dad and he was first in post, I thought, what a hideous burden. And now I think that I'm in post, I think, gosh, what a brilliant honour, actually. So yeah, my dad has definitely influenced me, but in a really positive way. Yeah.
Excellent. Now, I was certainly not trying to trip you up because he knows where I live.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And well, no, I can't get there though.
And
he's in lockdown. I'm not going to get you yet.
Now, when we worked together, you had quite a different role, and I also remember thinking you'd been very lucky getting a call, because I'm pretty sure you told me that at one point you did ministry in Ibiza or something. Was that
That's
Ibiza?
right, yes.
Yeah. So how does your current ministry compare to maybe previous stuff, and including going to Ibiza?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually talking about my mission trip to Ibiza on Sunday. And
mission.
It's all, when you start saying
mission trip,
yeah.
the mission
exactly.
trip.
Exactly. Partying in San Antonio, it was not. So yes, I would say I was always resistant to get involved in ministry because it felt like I was joining the establishment. And I've really enjoyed doing mission work that was very kind of here and there and everywhere, and very spontaneous. I'm a bit of a free spirit, so the thought of the kind of the establishment was very off-putting, if I was totally honest. But actually, people are people, and so whether you're chatting to some hungover clubber in a heap in the beach in Ibiza, or if you are chatting to somebody at the door of the church who's experiencing, whatever drama is going on in their life, it's all mission. And so I think I was hesitant to get involved with full on being the minister. I never ever saw myself in that position. I loved working with you because I enjoyed that supportive role and having the flexibility of the buck not stopping with me, because it stopped you, and any ridiculous ideas I had, you got the blame for. However, I think it reached a stage actually where I felt the church was ready to begin to think a little bit differently, and the church feels in a stage, and especially with the stuff that's going on now, we're having to be much more creative in how we do things. We're having to rethink what worship looks like. And so I felt that the church was ready to start beginning to look at different ways of doing that, and that was really appealing for me.
Let me ask you, because I can totally resonate with the fear of the establishment. That even once I started training, there was a great resistance for a long time. So what changed, right? Did we get older and head towards middle age and become part of the establishment, or has it changed, do you think?
I honestly do think it has changed. I think, not wanting to be out of line, but I mean, Dave, you really were inspiring as far as I recognised that you were looking at new ways of doing church and you weren't part of that establishment. So that inspired me to think, actually, maybe there is room for folk like me. And I think that the more diverse people that we get into ministry, the more we will appeal as a church to a more diverse group of people. And when we were at Candidates Conference, I was happened to be sitting with somebody who wasn't part of the conference. And she was like, "Oh, what group of people are you?" Like, she thought we were some kind of really, because it's in St Andrews. And she was like, "Gosh, you're like the weirdest golfers ever." I was like, "We're not golfers, we're not training for the ministry." And she was like, "You're kidding. I would never have thought that." And so I think as I'm looking in years of people that are coming into ministry, there's definitely more of a diversity there. I think the church has recognised it needs to be more flexible. I've got two kids. My kid, Christina was in nursery when I started training. So there's recognition that there needs to be a flexibility, and it's getting there. It is still a heaving establishment that takes time to change, but I would say it's getting there.
I was thinking about that as as I was preparing to speak to you. I was thinking about like when I went through training, it was just me, and I found that tough enough. You went through training with husband, two kids, all these different things, and now you're ministering with all these extra responsibilities. How on earth do you balance it?
It's a challenge, but everybody has that. We're all balancing things. We're all juggling things. I actually, when I was at university, I was grateful for the kids because I came home and I just had to make the dinner and I had to do the baths and I had to, so it meant that it brought a structure to my life. Whereas I spoke to other students who were maybe younger and single, who were spending, had left home for the first time, who didn't have any of that kind of safety and security and comfort of that. So I felt really blessed to have my family as being a real stabilising factor. And yeah, I mean, there was times where on your lunch break, you're doing your Asda shop online as you're trying to then do your next assignment. And, all that stuff is a bit of a head spin. But I find the family really grounds me, actually. And I think, especially in lockdown, they've been doing prayers. I've roped Richard into playing guitar. I've got Ryan and Christina doing action songs. And so they're part of the ministry. Which was hugely supportive. And there's always been an awareness that it wasn't just my calling, it was a whole unit. We were called as a family, and everybody kind of committed to that. So yeah, I feel I feel that it enriches my ministry having them as part of it, without question.
I remember Russell Barr once saying, if you want to be a good preacher, then get a life.
Yeah, yes. I mean, I can't say I would say I'm a good preacher or I have a life, certainly not at the moment. But yes, I think that there's a richness that they all bring. Although I have to be careful to not tell too many stories, and I always get their approval first. Ryan, can I tell that story? No, don't.
I guess as a minister's kid, you've got that thing that you understand what it's like to be named.
Yeah, I don't, because my dad became a minister when I was 18, 19.
Okay.
I didn't grow up in the manse.
Yep.
So I feel like I've been really protected from having that kind of pressure of, the minister's kid. So I'm very conscious of making sure that I'm mindful of that for Matthew.
Now, you mentioned calling, and that's always an interesting, sometimes controversial area, so I'll be careful. But it took you a while to get to parish ministry, although ministry kind of characterised your entire working life, I think. So what does call mean to you, and how did it develop?
So let's think. I remember after you'd moved to Perth, I was meeting with John Young. We were having a chat, and he said, "Louise, have you ever thought about ministry?" And I have been asked this, especially because my dad is a minister, and I've worked for churches for so much of my life. But it's never. I've always had this guttural, "Oh no, it's just not for me." And for some reason, when John Young asked, I had butterflies in my tummy, and I just felt this shift. And I thought, oh, I wonder if this is time to really think about it. And so I went home. I spoke to Richard. I spoke to my friends. Everybody had kind of arrived there before I had. So yes, Louise. Yes, we think you should have a think about this. Yes, go for it. And then after I began to think, kind of, okay, maybe we should really think seriously about this, it felt like from all different directions, people were coming in and saying things and just thinking, you need to be. David McNeish actually was probationer at the Kirk at the time, and so he was like, I think you really need to be thinking about this. So by the minute that I kind of thought seriously about it, it felt like there was all kinds of little reminders of, little prods, I suppose. And I think your training is challenging. It is so challenging that if you don't know that you're called, it would be very easy to just be like, you know what, there are other ways. So I think having to really communicate your calling is something that the church is very keen that you're able to do. And I absolutely understand why, because it is tough, and so you have to know that you're called. And within that calling, there's still doubts of like, God, are you sure? And I think that's really healthy, and I think that's important. And I think the minute that you don't question your calling, you need to think seriously. It's not like, oh yes, the church is just waiting for me to arrive to transform it. And then you have to have that sense of anticipation, that kind of dread of, oh gosh, really? But I think when you know, and you cling on to that, it's important.
There's, I suspect quite a few ministers come home from session or from Sunday services thinking they might be in the wrong place.
Yes. Seriously, I don't know about this. I know it's what it is.
Now, when I trained a little bit before you, and I remember maybe moaning too much about the training because it seemed, it was tough, but more because it seemed to be training for a style of ministry that I didn't recognise. Has that improved, do you think, or is it more relevant to what you want to do?
Yeah, I think they're trying, and we've seen throughout my training there've been huge changes that have taken place. So things are changing. I remember having a moment where I suddenly realised I was in a church and I was learning to ballroom dance, but my heart was salsa. And I'm like, I'm learning the wrong dance. I am never going to be a ballroom dancer. And they're making me do this dance and my heart is Latin or, So, yeah, there is, there are still those wrestles, I would say. But I think I look back at those times and think, well, actually, when I learned good posture in my ballroom class and, I did learn to pronunciate a little bit better and so you glean what you can from these experiences. But yeah, I was very aware that there were times I felt trained for a ministry that I would never ever be, they would never be applicable to me. But I think that's part of the discipline, actually. There were moments I was like, they're trying to break me, but it is in that breaking you down that God builds you up. So I think God uses everything, and so yeah, there were without question frustrations, but I think it does make you stronger, actually. And I think I had a really good. Now, I don't think it was a supervisor. I can't remember what they call them. I don't even know if they still have them anymore. Anyway, somebody who was kind of on the training. Every time I had a bit of a moan, says, "Well, how would you do it? What would be you if this isn't your style? Then why not? And what is?" And so there was a constant kind of, okay, this doesn't feel right. Why doesn't it feel right? What is it that I'm bringing? Who is it that God's made me to be? So yeah, that was really helpful, actually.
So you've been able
and kind of finding out your own style, I guess.
You've been able to reflect on
exactly.
So what are you going to do differently, do you think? Maybe you don't want to tell your congregation that beforehand.
I know. My kids interviewed me, and you're trying to get to know people. So for our website, Ryan and Christina did a kind of Graham Norton interview with me on the sofa, and they didn't tell me any of their questions, so that it was nice and spontaneous, and I did trust them. And they said, "Are you willing to change Bonyrigg Church?" And I was like, "Oh, how is this going to be heard?" So I'm like, "Yes, I'm willing, but it needs change, but it doesn't really need change." And I'm like, "Ooh," digging myself a hole. So yeah, I think that, community is my absolute heartbeat as far as church life. So making as many connections in the community is, I find life outside the church probably a lot more comfortable than life inside the church. So trying to just keep those connections with the community and making those connections, and also getting to know Bonyrigg, getting to know the parish, getting to know the congregation, and being very careful to listen to what God's saying. The Holy Spirit knows exactly what's needed. And it's really interesting because the first week we moved into the manse, I woke in the night a number of times, actually, with a line of a song, and not a song that I would at all remember or sing particularly often in church because it's quite old. The Graham Kendrick one, where it says, "All heaven waits with bated breath for saints on earth to pray." And that was really, I woke with it a number of evenings, and I was like, God is calling us to pray. So was kind of looking at ways of how we can develop prayer life in order to hear exactly what, God wants us to do. And actually, when the shutdown came, I was like, well, there you go. He told us to pray, and in fact, it's the only thing that we can do. We can't do all these great ideas. We'll do this, we'll do that. Actually, all we can do is pray. And so recognising that it's God's work, and actually I'm not here to change the parish. That's absolutely God's work. And so prayer, it has to be rooted in prayer. And again, my goodness, in these times, it's all we've got, really.
Yeah, let me explore that again, because you mentioned university or studying for ministry kind of breaks things down, and that'd be my experience. And so you said God helped reconstruct that, and I'm interested in how that happens, and I'm also interested in general how your general spiritual life is maintained. Have you got any ideas or tips for us?
Oh, well, I'm struggling. I mean, I'm an extrovert, so I get energy from other people. So this is like, oh, and again, when you're trying to create sermons and connecting with people, you're gleaning from everywhere. So it's really hard in isolation, actually. But yeah, I think the reconstruction stuff you asked about, I think it happens very slowly, and I don't think. I think that God builds you, as bit by bit, God builds you up, and kind of conversation by conversation with people that feed you, and books that inspire you, or pieces of music that you connect with. So I think that reconstruction happens very slowly, bit by bit, over time. And as far as maintaining that kind of spiritual dynamic, you're just trying to stay open. It's I am an activist, so it is hard. But trying to just make as much space for God, and there's so much out there actually now, more than ever before. People are feeling powerless, so they're putting so much online that we can access so much. But actually, sometimes it's in the withdrawing, and it's in the quietness, or the moments of solitude that God speaks. Or when you're sleeping. I love when God speaks to me when I'm sleeping. It's total multitasking at its best. So yeah.
Thank you. That's helpful. I've been asking that of everybody, and I'm hoping that I myself will pick up some tips as well, because I think it's difficult to it's difficult to be a professional Christian, and it's difficult to give out spiritually and remember to take in.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think I'm still too new to feel at all like a professional Christian, in the sense that this still feels like I don't know what I'm doing in my, the congregation and the Kirk session are being enormously forgiving, as I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I especially don't know what I'm doing now. But I think one of the things that I'm keen and that I regularly communicate is there's a team. I can't do it, and even with all the will in the world and with all the training in the world, I can't do it. It has to be team. It has to be together, and it has to be born in prayer and the Holy Spirit. So yeah.
I remember as part of the interview for Edinburgh Presbytery, and this might be 20 years ago. I can't think how far, but I remember Alec Douglas said to me in the interview, "What are you going to do once you've been a minister for a number of years and you're sitting there on a Saturday night thinking, I've got nothing left to say?" And I think I said naively, "Oh, I can't even imagine that happening."
Nothing to say.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. And I'll keep this for 10 years, and you can see, where you are in Bonyrigg 10 years from now.
Yeah. Yes. As long as I'm not still sitting here fucking doing it on my side, that'll be good enough for me.
For the introverts among us, this is paradise.
Yeah, no, I know. You are all having a jolly old time. I'm like, oh.
It's like, what, sit in my office and read all day? What?
I know, going mad. Honestly, the minute, I'm like, I can see out my window, and whenever loads of people walk past walking our dog, and I'm like that, hello, like, can we talk for the distance, please? Desperate for anything. Yes.
I've got one last question for you, which is not quite so spiritual, and that is, some folk will know that your husband is a writer, and one of his favourite subjects is Celtic football team, and I just wondered how much influence he had on decorating the room you're in.
None in this room. This is a nice gentle green. But my son's room, Ryan, has got absolute bright green. He's got one bright green wall and then white walls, and it is like, there's a lot of football posters. Which, interestingly, I heard that my predecessor is a strong Rangers fan. So I'm not sure how he'll feel about the manse now being painted green and white. However, we're all part of the same body of Christ.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Louise, it's been a total pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us.
Not at all. My pleasure, Dave. Thank you. Yeah.